fellas? It's been a while. How we doing? Chuck Silver here with Occupied Fantasy. We're going to talk about the NBA Finals. We got the Knicks versus the Spurs. This is my dummy lineup. We'll take a look at the model. We'll talk about what I think is going to happen in the series. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think is going to happen in the series, and then we'll dive into Game One and how the rotations could look, stuff like that. Jose, love that you're here early, man. Appreciate you. Who do we have winning this game tonight? This game tonight, I'm not sure I have a strong lean. The Spurs are 5-point favorites in New York, which I think is pretty significant. Vegas just does not have confidence in New York winning the series. I was a little surprised when I saw the series odds. The first line I saw was Spurs minus 186. Now I'm seeing Spurs minus 190 over on FanDuel. It translates to roughly under 2/3 of the time. Vegas thinks the Spurs win the series now. On paper, yeah, probably. That sounds about right. But I think that it's really hard to quantify. But the Knicks are overperforming harder than any team has ever performed before. This last 10-game streak that they're on, no team has ever done what they've done in the last 10 games, and it's really not close, like in the regular season either. And so I think a big question
is that better? Jeez. Well, I'm sorry. Forgot to switch my mic. Yeah. I will say everything I just said again. Basically, the series opened Spurs minus 186. I'm seeing Spurs minus 190. That translates to Vegas thinking the Spurs win a little under 2/3 of the time. On paper, that's probably correct. I think we have to consider the run that the Knicks have been on, though. It's something like their last 10 games have been no other team has ever done what they've done over the last 10 games, and it's not close. And so, on one hand, they're overperforming harder than anyone ever has. No one has ever kept this up for this long doing what they're doing. And so, they have to come back down to earth eventually. But on the other hand, what if they keep it up? And so I think the Knicks can make this tough. I think it's going to be a close series. I don't think it's going to be Spurs in 4 or 5. It absolutely could be. But I would be a little bit surprised. One thing we have to consider is what is the playoff experience that both of these teams have? None of these guys have played in the finals except Harrison Barnes. OG Anunoby won a championship with Toronto, but he didn't play. He didn't play a minute. He was hurt. So none of these guys have finals experience. How much that's going to come into play, we'll have to see. But the Knicks in general are the more veteran team. Spurs are one of the youngest teams to ever make the finals. And so we'll have to see how much that inexperience comes into play. For now, we'll just take a look at what the numbers actually say. But for tonight, I don't know. I got the Knicks hat on. We got the Wemby jersey. And so I think if I had to pick, just given the odds, I would pick the Knicks to win the series. But we'll have to see how that goes. Terry saying Spurs. Amari saying Spurs. Yeah, there we go. Thanks. Appreciate it, fellas. Matt's good to see you. What's up, man? Do I think the Knicks rested too long and come out a little bit rusty? I don't think so, but I think it's this is definitely a valid comment because the Spurs are still on short rest. They went to 7 games with OKC, right? And we kind of saw the effects of the fatigue set in the middle of last series. They grinded it out and they really dug in their heels at the end of the series to beat OKC. But it's still only a few days off and they're jumping in right into a different series. And so do I think the Knicks will be rusty? No, I think they definitely have the advantage because they're more rested. They've had less playoff games, period, throughout the whole playoff run, not just in the previous series. So I'm not too concerned about the Knicks coming out rusty or anything like that. I think they're going to come out hot. Yeah, and Jose thinks the Spurs are going to win too. It's the easy thing, yeah. I mean, more than likely the Spurs are going to win, but I really think the Knicks can give them some trouble. Are there any cheap players that I would openly advocate for in the captain spot? I'm glad you brought this up early, Jose. So let's take a look over on what the lineup construction looks like on DraftKings. So the top captain option, I think, very clearly is Victor Wembanyama. He's expensive, but if we try to pair even one of these other guys in there, it already gets kind of difficult. Let's throw in Cat. I think this is a pretty interesting one. We'll talk about him too. But that already only leaves us with $5,000 per player. So I think some of the best mid-range players, these guys are all viable. From Josh Hart, even Stephon Castle, his price is pretty good. I don't think we can fit him in here, but there's a lot of mid-range guys in here. And so, if we want to fit 2 of them, we're already kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like Shamit's a little expensive. Harper, I think, is fine to take shots on, but if we want to fit two of these top guys, we have to fit in one of these really cheap guys. So Jose asking if any of these like cheap guys are viable to be captain. I took a hard look at this, and the answer I came up with is no. Even if we do something like the one that the builder wants to give us is Carter Bryant, and it's only because he's 1,800. It's the only reason, and he has a projection. So we plug in Carter Bryant at captain. We can get Wemby, and then that allows us to not have to scrape the bottom of the barrel. We can literally play whoever we want in the rest of the spots, basically. But the problem is, how many points are we giving up by doing that? Wemby in the captain spot, let's say he puts up 60 fantasy points, it's plus 30, right? Carter Bryant, if he puts up 8, yeah, 8 would be hopeful. If he puts up 6, it's only plus 3. And so even though we're getting the 60 points from Wemby rather than however many points from the bottom of the barrel guy, I don't think it's enough to make up for it. And I've played like every single showdown in the finals since 2020, and I can only remember this working once. It's possible it worked more than once, but the only time this ever happened and was the winning lineup was a min price guy in the captain who put up 0, and then 5 players in the game who scored all the fantasy points. No one else scored like more than 12 or something. And so the only combination really was just to fit all 5 of those guys in the lineup by any means necessary, including getting a 0 at captain. Like I said, it's only worked once, still a decently small sample size, but I'm not really expecting that to work going forward. So if we're not looking at the super cheap captains, we're not going to be able to play all the superstars. I think we should take a harder look at these mid-range captains. So I already mentioned Wemby is probably going to be the top captain option overall. If we take a look at the model, it's just, the fantasy point projection is just not close here. And Brunson actually came up since the last refresh. It was a little bit lower earlier today, but the point stands. He's projected for 23% captain ownership on DraftKings, and I'd actually be surprised if he only came in at 23. I would expect it to come in closer to 30, but regardless, I think that's a pretty good spot to target, even though this game is in New York. Now, beyond Wemby, we can look at these other top guys like Towns. We can do a little bit more if we play him or Brunson at captain. We'll try Brunson this time. 5,100 is not bad to fill in 3 spots. We already have Devin Vassell in there. But what if we do something cool like Josh Hart captain? Leaves us 6,300, which gives us a little bit extra salary to work with. We'll fit in Carl Towns still, and we still kind of have the same problem here. And it really just comes from playing 2 of these top superstars, Cat, Wemby, Brunson, just given their prices. And so we're going to have to make decisions. We probably are going to have to play the cheap guys down here. The one that the builder wants to give me in the flex the most is Carter Bryant. And again, it's just a salary play. We're not expecting many fantasy points. He just makes lineups work. But you can really plug and play any of these mid-range captains, and I think it's going to be solid. Josh Hart, if you're using the builder, you're going to want to set caps on max exposure at captain because it's going to want to give you a lot of Fox captain, a lot of Champagne captain, a lot of Vassell captain, and I think those guys are definitely viable, but we don't want 10% plus of each of those guys because I want to be over the field on Wemby. I want to be I want to try to get over the field on Cat and Brunson. I'm neutral on Stephon Castle, whatever I get on him, but I still want pieces of the rest of these guys. Just because, like I said, even if Wemby puts up 70 fantasy points tonight, it's not a guarantee he's a winning captain because, other guys are going to score fantasy points, and there's just a lot of guys in this game. Like this whole section right here, anyone here could put up 30 plus and no one would be surprised about it, right? And so I think the key is getting the right combination of these guys. And then obviously you want to get the right captain, but it's more so about the whole construction of the lineup rather than just which captain you think is going to be the highest score or whatever, because, it's just so hard to fit it in, to fit, a roster that we're comfortable with if we're playing Wemby at captain. Is Harper my first thought? He's the guy down here who I think is a little bit underrepresented by the field, even in the flex. 5,400, like you guys just saw, we kept being left with 5K in the flex. And while we still probably have to dig a little deeper and play one of these guys in a few of our lineups, I think Dylan Harper is a really good option to fit in there. I do need to mention, though, that even including those games he started, his playoff minutes are a little bit down from the regular season, which is concerning. And it seems like it's one of those things where if he comes in and he's playing really well, he's scoring, he's helping the team, he's going to get a few extended minutes. But if he's not, he has the potential to have his leash kind of short tonight now that De'Aaron Fox is another week removed from that ankle injury he had. Because you guys remember the first two games of the OKC series, how bad the turnover problems were? Those went away when De'Aaron Fox came back. And so, regardless of whatever you think about the future with Dylan Harper, like De'Aaron Fox is going to be the priority for the Spurs to be on the court tonight. And his minutes were also slightly down. I'm sorry, they were basically the same. And so I'd like to think that he has a potential to play a couple more minutes now that he's a little bit further removed from that injury. But to answer your question, I think Harper's a fine captain option. I wouldn't go crazy with it, but 3% is not that hard to get over the field on. If you're playing 20 max, you can play him in 2 and you're 3x the field. That's massive. 10 leg parlay for tonight. Oh, man. I don't think I put one in today. Brunson is a cheat code. I never would have thought he'd be that good. I don't think anybody did. But yeah, that he's doing it. So this is a good transition because I want to talk about Cat. We saw Chet crumble in when he had to guard Wemby last series, and not just when he was guarding him, but when Wemby was guarding him too. We saw a few possessions where Wemby kind of looked at it like, no, I'm not even going to try. He gave up. He's mentally defeated. It's tough. He's a young kid. He'll bounce back. You know, all the hate he's getting online, it's a little bit too much. But looking at the regular season, Chet versus Wemby, his stats were kind of down against Wemby too. He only had really one good game against Wemby in his career. It's only 7 or 8 games in the regular season, but it wasn't that hard to predict that he would be bad against Wemby, Chet. But no one predicted him to be that bad. So I talk about that because Cat is in a similar position where he's likely going to be the primary player guarding and being guarded by Wemby. I mean, I discussed with someone else, maybe the Knicks could do something cool, like put OG on Wemby and then have Cat play help side. They'll probably try something like that at some point. But for the most part, I'm going to assume Cat is going to be the guy. It's going to be Cat versus Wemby. I looked up Cat's regular season stats versus Wemby, and he shot 50% at least in all of the games, which is pretty encouraging. His 3-point percentage was not great, but that's another consideration. You know, if he's hanging out at the 3-point line, drawing Wemby away from the basket, is that going to make it easier for the rest of the Knicks? Are they going to have to switch off Wemby and have someone else guard Cat? And so either way, I like Cat. I thought his ownership would come in a little bit lower, and I kind of think it will with all the hand builders out there for the finals. A lot of people who don't normally play NBA DFS are going to be tuning in today. But I think Cat's a pretty decent option. I really would be surprised if his ownerships at captain or flex came in as high as we're projecting. And so I think that's a spot I want to get to a little bit. I mentioned Brunson's OF index changed a little bit. Him and Cat were neck and neck, but now Brunson's a little bit ahead. And we have Stephon Castle with a higher OF index than Cat. And so remember, this is not salary sensitive. So our data is suggesting that Castle is the better fantasy play, and we're getting him for quite a bit cheaper. And I mean, it's just trying to figure out how do we balance Wemby and the captain or the utility. And then we mix in Castle, we mix in, if we try to do this, we can get one of these cheap guys in the captain, like Mikal Bridges or something, but then we're not going to be able to play Wemby at captain with Castle and then also play Towns or Brunson. We're going to have to make decisions. So do I think they have an answer for Wemby? I don't even know if I'm joking when I say this, but Mike Brown, known defensive genius, they've had a week to scheme up some plans. If I'm remembering correctly, the Knicks gave the Spurs a tough time during the regular season. And so an answer, I don't know. I think that they can do better than OKC did, assuming Cat doesn't get shook like Chet did. I'm not worried about Wemby's production, though. He's going to do whatever he wants against anybody. Cavel, great to see you too, man. How does this affect Cooper Flagg's career? He's going to have a little bit more pressure to make the finals by year 3, I suppose. Yeah, best FanDuel captain. Let's talk about FanDuel a little bit. We don't have ownership projections for FanDuel today, but the situation is very similar. This is kind of just like the dummy I put in to reserve my lineups. Again, Wemby is probably going to be the best captain option, or MVP option rather, even more so on FanDuel just due to the stocks being worth 3. But it's really tough to fit him in. It's a little bit easier over here. We really only had to punt one spot, and it's a big deal that Landry Shamet is less than half the price on FanDuel than he was on DraftKings. And then 2 comfortable role players in Vassell and Champagne. I mean, we could probably even swap Vassell out. Oh no, we can fit in Dylan Harper, who's a little cheaper too, but it's a lot more flexibility here. And so for FanDuel, I'm only running a couple lineups on FanDuel today. I'm doing my mass multi-entry on DraftKings, but I want to try to get away from Wemby captain on FanDuel just because I only have two entries over here. I'm gonna have one as cat for sure. I don't know what the rest of the lineup's gonna look like. Something like this. We don't even have to punt on Shamit. When we have a cat captain, we can do. I mean, we can fit Vassell and Harper. Yeah, leaving 300 is absolutely fine. Swap around Josh Hart or Champagne, experiment with Brunson, same thing as Cat. Again, though, very difficult to fit three of those top players over here if we're playing one of the top studs at captain. I mean, it already leaves us with 4,600. The difference, though, again, is that we have better value plays over here. Dylan Harper has been phenomenal. I mean, I think he's a pretty great boomer bust DFS guy. If he gives me 10 points, I don't really care because I'm playing him for the games he gives us 30 in 22 minutes. Very efficient, and just, for a rookie to have this poise throughout the playoffs, it's pretty incredible. So I'm not worried about him. Like, I'm not worried about anybody shying away from the moment. And yeah, Champagne, it's going to get a little awkward if you do this, leave a little bit of salary, but just swap around the players. And then real quick, I want to touch on Mitchell Robinson. He broke his hand at home. I understand this is a boxer's injury, so he probably punched something, but he's good to go. He's expected to play. I know the game is still a couple hours away, but going to talk about everything as if he's playing. I think he's a fine value option to mix in too. I didn't mention him much. I didn't try to mix him in much into the lineups. He's a little more expensive on DraftKings, so it's harder to get to. But on FanDuel, all the value plays are cheaper, so I don't think he necessarily stands out any more than the rest. Amari, you don't know if you're bearish or bullish on Brunson. He's been scoring dependent lately, but Cat has multi-category upside. Yeah, I really like that about Cat. I feel like the floor is a lot better than it was previously. Even in games in the first round, there was at least one specific game I remember watching, the one that Brunson completely took over. I think it's the one that game one against the Cavs, and Cat was completely fine taking the backseat. He let Brunson take over, handle the ball every single possession, and Brunson went to work, right? And in the games where it wasn't just clear Brunson was taking over, Cat has been playing like kind of a Jokic role. Like, the offense is running through him more. These assist numbers are pretty great for him. And so he hasn't been scoring 20 points, but I think his floor is pretty strong. And then to actually answer your question about Brunson, yeah, he's pretty scoring dependent. These assist numbers are okay for a floor, but it's tough. He probably does have to put up close to 30 real points for him to pay off his salary unless something else weird happens in the game. And so, like, I kind of guess I'm getting it across that I do prefer Cat a little bit for tournaments today, especially if we can get him at a lower ownership than Brunson. But Cat has to deal with Wemby, and Brunson has to deal with De'Aaron Fox, who is not quite the same thing. They could switch up the matchups, who guards who, but I'm going to expect it to be Jalen on De'Aaron Fox for a bit, at least to start. You see Cat and OG getting in foul trouble? Yeah, Cat hasn't gotten in foul trouble lately, but remember, this dude was a fouling machine earlier in the season. People have trouble with Wemby, I'm sorry. In the 6 games Cat has played against Wemby in the regular season, his foul count has been 4, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. So he's fouled out once, and he's been in foul trouble one other time. I'm not going to do anything to adjust for it, but I will acknowledge that it is something that could happen. I don't know if OG is going to get in foul trouble. If Cat gets in foul trouble, I think they have to play Mitchell Robinson a little bit more than they were in the previous series. They can't go with that small lineup. If Wemby's on the court, they have to have Mitchell Robinson on the court if Cat is in foul trouble. So again, yeah, just another, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but another reason to play Mitchell Robinson. If OG gets in foul trouble, who takes the minutes? It's been Shamit lately. I would think it's Shamit. For the playoffs, Shamit's really the only one of these back of the bench guys between him, Clarkson, and Jose Alvarado that's gotten more minutes in the playoffs. Even McBride is down 5 minutes per game from what he was playing in the regular season. So he's worth a shot too. Remember, it's a different series, so teams are going to switch it up. The plans could be different. So we're still considering McBride, especially at this 1,800 on FanDuel. That's a great price for him to take a shot. Yeah. especially if you're doing Wemby captain, because how many people are going to play Wemby captain? I just showed you it's really not that hard to get him there. So playing guys like Miles McBride instead of Landry Shamet are going to come up big when it works out. Yeah, Fox at captain in one. Yeah, if you're using so if you're a member of Occupy Fantasy and you use our builder, if you've been using it for the playoffs, it loves De'Aaron Fox captain, and it's because he projects well and his price has been pretty good. I mentioned we're another week removed from that ankle injury. Like 35 minutes, if it's a close game, I meant like they need him on the court. They need this veteran ball handler to kind of, run the game because Dylan and Stephon Castle just aren't ready yet. And so I would love to see 35-minute upside for De'Aaron Fox tonight. We haven't projected for 34, so it's only one more minute. But at the price, I mean, if you're using really any projection system, you're probably getting a ton of them in your lineups. At captain, I'm not thrilled about it, though, in New York. Like, I don't have zero of him. One of the few players I'm under the field on at captain tonight, though, De'Aaron Fox. But like I just said, the builder really likes it. I'm just kind of going against the builder on this one because I prefer him in the flex. Who's the best Filipino on the court? Come on, man. It's Dylan Harper. Easily. Harper, Clark, yeah. Dylan Harper. And, I love Clarkson. I'm a Los Angeles Lakers fan. Clarkson is a cool guy, but Harper has the potential to impact this series. Clarkson kind of doesn't. Like, what's the best we're hoping for with Clarkson? He comes in for one game and drops 15 points once. Clarkson or the ex-Sun God Shamet. I have to think it's clearly Shamet because the minutes have just been a lot more consistent for him during the playoffs. And he's actually been in a winning lineup or two during this run. So, I mean, this 11-minute game, not great, but 17, 15, 28, 19. And I know some of these were blowouts, but just his right before that, they weren't great against Atlanta. But Clarkson, like, if the best we're hoping for from Clarkson is 16 minutes, 13 minutes, and it's possible. Yes, like, these are the plays no one's going to play. If he does it, you have a pretty good chance if the rest of your lineup's right. But the chance is so small. And so I have a few percent of Clarkson, but I'm playing a little bit more Shamet. On DraftKings, it's tough because Clarkson and Shamet's price are not really similar at all. But on FanDuel, they're close enough that I don't think you have to really consider Clarkson too much. I think it's just very clearly Shamet. Mitchell Robinson is going to go ham. Yeah, Mitchell Robinson, what's his ownership? So on DraftKings, we have Mitchell Robinson projected for 12%. I got to think it's going to be a little bit higher just because he's cheaper, easier to fit in on FanDuel. Probably makes a little bit more sense to play him on FanDuel too, given the scoring. But 13 minutes, I don't mind giving him an extra minute or two to try to fit in a little bit more. It's still going to be kind of awkward on DraftKings. But, does he help us fit in Wemby captain with two of the other studs? I would love to take a shot on McBride here, but again, he's a little bit expensive. Like, Carter Bryant is just going to be the default, and I'm sure a lot of projection systems are going to do that because it lets us fit in McHale. Or if we go with someone at the straight min price. Problem is, none of these guys are going to play, so it'd have to be that situation I talked about at the top of the show where it just doesn't matter how many fantasy points this guy is. All that matters is his salary allows you to construct the rest of the lineup. You guys have anything else you want to talk about? Any more ideas? I feel like I'm missing something, but you guys tell me. Stephon Castle captains are pretty cool just because his price is pretty good. Where are the rest of the players? Okay. So it's a little bit cheaper than like Cat and Brunson to where it allows us a little more flexibility. We might not have to punt off on that last roster spot. It's still in kind of an awkward salary range, though. I'd almost prefer to just go a little bit cheaper to one of these guys down here, maybe a Nick. Even though the Spurs are favored to win, I feel like I want to be over the field on Nick's captains. Cat number one, and then just mix up the other starters. So we'll throw Wemby in there. We'll try Cat. Leaves us 4,700. It's already tough. Mitch Rob at 4K. Dylan Harper. It does let us do Landry Shamet. Leaves $100. It's not too bad. maybe this was kind of a low-owned lineup. We got 3 low-owned players with a lower-ish owned captain, so this would be fine even in that big this $1 million contest. They're just going to keep Mitchell Robinson at the free throw line where they know he's not going to hurt him. All right, let's see how that looks. Mitchell Robinson versus Wemby. So they've only played in 3 games where they both played. The most recent one tells us nothing. Mitchell Robinson played 15 minutes back in March, 4 points, 5 rebounds, took 3 free throws, and he made none of them. Definitely something to consider, though, but I'm not really going to have it play into what I'm doing today until I see them do it. I'll adjust for game 2 if necessary, but even with that, like the situation I said, if Cat gets into foul trouble, Mitchell Robinson has to play. I don't think they have another option. I mean, they're going to roll out Diawara or who's the other guy? Huck Porty? I don't think so. Huck Porty played 8 minutes in the last series, so not a lot of confidence for anyone else. All that to say, I think Mitchell Robinson's minutes are pretty secure here. Whether it's 12 minutes or like 18 minutes, though, is the question. You think Wemby's expensive for his price? You think he can hit 4.3x his value? You'd rather get other plays and get you 20? I like that. Yeah, let's talk about fading Wemby. Every lineup I've had so far features Wemby in the captain or flex. Let's throw okay, you want to throw Castle? We'll throw a Castle one, but we won't put Wemby in this one. If we get both Brunson and Towns, put in Champagne, it still gets awkward. So let's actually fade one of these guys. Let's maybe it's a Brunson versus Castle showdown. We'll keep De'Aaron Fox in there. We like his 32 fantasy points in the flex. Leaves us 6,500, which is enough to get Devin Vassell and Mikal Bridges. We didn't even have to punt anyone. And I'm considering the punts everyone below Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper's still kind of a punt at 5,400. But like, yeah, here, like this lineup looks pretty good, right? You're missing Wembanyama. But if Wemby scores like in the 40s and the rest of the game plays out a certain way, yeah, Wemby could definitely miss making the winning lineup tonight. How are we looking at Josh Hart this series? So he was talking about this in one of the press conferences recently about how he was a little confused in the regular season why his minutes were down. And then I think we were all a little confused. His minutes were down in the playoffs too, but then Mike Brown came to his senses and like this stretch right here, I guess they won all these games, but Josh Hart's minutes should be good. I think he's their 3rd most important player after Brunson and Cat. Maybe him or OG. But either way, he does everything. This floor of fantasy points is so strong, and he's not that much more expensive than the other mid-range guys. And so, yeah, I like Josh Hart at this price. This 8,200 versus 66, him versus Mikal. Josh Hart has the higher projection, but that 1,600 is the difference between, say, playing Landry Shamet and playing Devin Vassell. It's a pretty big difference. Am I concerned with Robinson's broken finger? It is surprising. He had surgery on it and he's good to go. And like I said, that boxer's injury, I think it's the same thing that Amari had when he punched that fire hydrant or whatever, the fire extinguisher 15 years ago or whatever. But if the team says he's good to go, I have to believe him. And so I'm just going to run him out like normal, especially if the field is going to be hesitant on it and we can get him at kind of an ownership discount, then I'm going to be a little bit more interested in him. So, I mean, 12% on DraftKings is not bad. I'd expect him to be slightly higher on FanDuel, but I'm going to be over those more than likely. On FanDuel, I only have 2 lineups, so maybe I'll have him in one. And then OG. So remember, OG was hurt for part of the playoffs, and then he was crushing in that first round. And then the second round, I think, was when he was kind of hurt. Third round, he was just kind of there. Again, same thing with Fox. He's another week removed from the injury. And he is a player who has shown he has the ability to take over a game. He has the ability to put up 50 fantasy points just randomly. And so I love OG. I think as a fantasy play, I probably like him more than Josh Hart, or like as a GPP play, I guess. I know their ownerships are similar. Josh Hart's about $1,000 more over on DraftKings, but OG is more expensive on FanDuel. So maybe what you could do is play a little more OG on DraftKings and play a little more Josh Hart on FanDuel. On DK, Josh Hart's price is just too much. Yeah, let's we didn't even get him in this lineup. 8,200, because it's like you could get Stephon Castle for 400 more, if you're fading Stephon Castle. to get Josh Hart instead. Let's just get OG instead of McHale, though. Fading Castle, but I don't know. Like I talked about, I want to get more Knicks at captain. I'm just going to be really mixing it up between the 5 starters. I'm hesitant on McHale, but he's going to have a few percent in there. Cat, Stephon Castle, OG Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson at 4K. Hart and Bridges or Vassell. Or you could go D Fox and I guess it only lets us get to the same thing. Leaving $700 is fine, especially if you're playing like this huge contest. Like it's likely going to chop at the top. You're not going to solo ship. It's possible. But we're more than happy to chop this contest if it's only a few ways. I think first place is 200K tonight. That'd be pretty nice, right? So appreciate you guys tuning in. I think I ran out of stuff to talk about, but game is still a couple hours away. We're having discussions in Discord all day. Instructions to join that are in the description below. And if you're interested in NFL best ball, Chris and I recorded, well, we're in the middle of a series as part of our partnership with DraftKings. We released a video yesterday or the day before. Another one will be going up tonight or tomorrow. And then the last one for June will go up on, I believe, Saturday night. And then we'll be back next month. But definitely check out the best ball playlist if you're interested in it. How do I feel about Keldon or McBride captain as their value is the highest on FanDuel? Yeah, let me sort by FanDuel value. So the way that I would look at this is I would say they're pretty strong FanDuel flex plays, especially if you're trying to go expensive at captain and jam in the studs. I don't think that they're good captain options because I just don't think it's really necessary to do it. Like, let's say Keldon at captain because he's the one who's a little bit more expensive. And let's go down the list. Wemby, Cat, Brunson, Stephon Castle. Like you still have 4,400 to get to Dylan Harper. Like Mitchell Robinson would be leaving a ton of salary. We could go a little bit lower in play. I mentioned play Josh Hart a little more on FanDuel. Fit Devin Vassell. It lets us do a lot. I have to think that lineups like this are going to be duped a lot. And I don't know if you're here for the beginning of the show, but I talked about why these cheapy captains just aren't likely to work in this series. And it's just there's so many guys capable of putting up 20 plus, 30 plus fantasy points. And so we don't necessarily need to go to the bottom of the barrel to just try to fit in the studs. Like, the studs we're expecting, 40 plus. But guess what? Josh Hart, Vassell, Champagne, Mikal Bridges, Fox are all capable of putting up 30 plus, and they all likely will at some point in the series. And so I really think that the lineup construction should center around what combinations are we getting of the mid-range. Let that dictate what salary you have left for your captain. And then that's how you pick the captain. I think for this game anyway, we'll adjust if we see something that needs adjusting after game 1, but I think that's the way to look at it today. And then I guess I didn't talk about like the other cheapy guys. I mentioned Clarkson, Shamet, but like Jose Alvarado is going to play a couple minutes. I don't see much value in playing him at all. Luke Cornett could get a few minutes. It's like this is the finals. We already saw the Spurs ramp up Wemby's minutes. They want Cornett on the court as little as possible. I know he had the big block in the deciding game in the fourth quarter, but they're really incentivized to keep Wemby on the court. So can Luke Cornett go off in the 9 minutes we haven't projected for it? Yeah, of course. But I think there's better ways to construct the roster, like I was just saying. And then Carter Bryant, he's who the builder's giving us. Like the value is poor, given that he's super cheap. Him being near the bottom of the list isn't good, but he looks better on DraftKings. And so if you really have a roster construction that requires a cheap guy like this, I think Carter Bryant's fine. Harrison Barnes has been here before, only guy who has played in a finals game on either roster. We haven't projected for 5 minutes. It's a new series. Maybe he could play 10, 12, but I would just expect one rotation maybe. And so he's interesting. I don't mind having a few percent, not someone I'm going overboard on. And then McBride, yeah, I mentioned it. 4,400 is a little tough on DraftKings, but 1,800 is great on FanDuel. His minutes are down in the playoffs from what they were in the regular season. They've been going to Landry Shamet. But again, new series. Things could change. If McBride ends up getting those minutes back, he's going to be a really good value on FanDuel. And then he's useful enough on DraftKings, even at that salary. Appreciate you guys. Good luck tonight. Let's have fun watching the game.